Quarterback is the most important position in all sports. A great quarterback can elevate a mediocre roster and drag them to the Super Bowl. A terrible quarterback can hold back even the best teams. Today, we're going to be ranking the top 10 quarterbacks going into 2024. This is not some look back on their whole career and then awarding them a legacy rank. We're not going to have Aaron Rodgers on this list. This is a bit of projection. So, starting things off, at number 10, most controversially of all, I've got Tua Tagovailoa. And a lot can be said about Tua. Most of it good, some of it bad. He is incredibly precise. When things are going, he is a top 3 quarterback. In perfect scenarios, he is perfect. Can hit the deep ball occasionally, finds Tyreek Hill, finds Jalen Waddle, gets his guys in stride, is able to navigate a somewhat crappy pocket behind a mediocre offensive line, has done wonders with McDaniel down in Florida. The issues clearly present. Health a concern, a little bit undersized, not a tremendous dual threat, and of course, we know the reputation for folding in big games in the playoffs. I think a lot of that is overblown. I think he has performed very well in the clutch before. I think any quarterback besides maybe a Josh Allen, a bigger bodied guy like that, would have struggled greatly going into Arrowhead Stadium with a negative 30-degree wind chill. He is one of the best game managers in the NFL. That term is not insulting. He can keep things going on time. He will lead you to having a productive offense. I think he is going to have another great season in 2024. He led the NFL in passing yards last season. You can't just leave him off your top 10 list after he does that.
Well, he's a very good quarterback. He certainly gets things done at a high level, but he is now, Jalen Waddle just got paid. He has 2 of the highest paid receivers in the NFL that he's thrown to, 2 of the most electric receivers in the NFL, and he's not some fantastic athlete. He's not close to a Josh Allen, a Justin Herbert, a CJ Stroud. When it comes to the physical tools, he's not like those other guys. Yes, he processes at an elite level. Yes, he's very accurate, but he's not close to the other guys I have above him on this list as an athlete. Do I think he's very good? Yes. Do I think he gets overhated? Yes. But there's also that health concern you always have with Tua. He's a smaller quarterback. He tends to get banged up. So for those couple reasons, I just can't put him as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And I don't know if the Dolphins will pay him at this point. I think it'd be aggressive to give him a contract like we've been seeing all the quarterbacks who have had some semblance of success get contracts in recent years.
If you're not going to give Tua Tagovailoa $50 million at least for what he's produced in the last 2 seasons, what's the point of it? You're not going to find a better quarterback in free agency. Maybe you think Lawrence is an upgrade. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think those two are closer than a lot of people would like to admit. But even if you get him, great. It's a lateral move. Even if you get a Dak Prescott, it's not that much of an upgrade. You're going to have to pay Dak way more. You're not going to draft a quarterback better than Tua, particularly not in this year's class. You got to pay Tua. I don't understand why people are surprised the Dolphins are considering giving him $50, $55 million. It's the way things are going.
I think they got to pay him, but do they need to pay? I just don't see the need to pay him $50+ million, putting him up in that upper echelon of quarterbacks. Now, the thing that plays in his favor when it comes to contract negotiations is that Trevor Lawrence did just get that bag, and he doesn't necessarily have all that much team success on his resume and even statistical success, which Tua certainly has much more of. I mean, you just mentioned it, led the NFL in passing yards last year.
I mean, the one reason Tua might take a slightly smaller contract than Lawrence, as recent videos have shown, he is a Costco guy. He does his shopping in bulk, he gets good deals, he gets chicken wraps, and it's all at a very affordable price. This video is not sponsored by Costco, but you should get a Costco membership. It is a fantastic service. Anyway, who's your number 10?
Well, number 10, I think you think a little bit more highly of him. Some people don't think all that highly of him at all. I have Jared Goff, not the most athletic quarterback in the world, but he has elevated the Lions roster over the previous 2 seasons. I think he deserved the contract he just got. A lot of people downplay the fact that he's been to a Super Bowl already, and I think he's capable of doing that with the Lions. You're not a bad quarterback when you have 65, 67% completion percentage back-to-back seasons, 29, 30 passing touchdowns. And led the Lions to the conference championship last year, lost narrowly to the 49ers, probably should have won that game if they maybe decide to take a field goal and Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't fumble in the second half. So he's a very good quarterback. The only reason I have him at 10 is he tends to, over the course of his career, benefit significantly from having having a fantastic offensive line, and when things aren't going his way necessarily, he doesn't seem to elevate all of the talent around him, and he doesn't have the physical tools of a Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert. That's why I have him at 10, rather 6 or 5.
I mean, I think he's got pretty close to the physical tools of guys like CJ Stroud. Maybe not quite the ability to run as Justin Herbert, but he's got a very strong arm. I think it's ridiculous to say he doesn't. He was the first overall pick in his draft for a reason. He's an athletic quarterback. I've got him at number 9. It's not some massive difference. The term game manager, I used it with Tua. It's not a bad thing. The greatest quarterback of all time was at points in his career a game manager. He runs an offense, methodically keeps them on schedule, benefits from the talent around him, but the talent around him benefits from him as well. He throws guys open. He gets guys the ball in space and lets them do what they're best at. He has a good offensive line. Sure. His pocket awareness helps that offensive line look a little bit better than it is. I still think it's the best line in football, but he helps that line look the way it does. It was the same case in Los Angeles. Speaking of Los Angeles, you mentioned him going to the Super Bowl with the Rams. He has clearly gotten better. Maybe not from a statistical point, but if you watch the games, you know he is much better in Detroit than he was under Sean McVay in LA. He's a floor raiser. He keeps the offense running on schedule, and he very easily could have been playing in the Super Bowl. He helped the Lions score 31 points against a good 49ers defense. Had 270 yards, threw a touchdown, then threw a pick. Above 60% completion percentage. Those are good stats. It is a good performance, and if not for some coaching errors, we're having a completely different conversation about Jared Goff. He's appeared in his second Super Bowl in his career. I think 9's about the right spot. There's some guys
appeared in one Super Bowl.
Again, he could have appeared in a second Super Bowl if the coaches had not screwed things up. We'd be having a very different conversation. That'd be 2 more than Josh Allen. That'd be 2 more than Lamar Jackson. That'd be 1 more than Joe Burrow. Hypotheticals don't really befit this discussion, but hey, we'll save those for when we get to Justin Herbert. Goff's a very good quarterback. I would feel comfortable with him leading my team. I have no issue with the Lions paying him. I think number 9's about the right spot.
I thought you even had him a little bit higher on your list. I know you love Jared Goff. You love the Lions.
Love has nothing to do with it. It's an accurate assessment. Oh, you have been saying one of the best teams in football is good the past few years. Shocking, I know. It's crazy.
Speaking of love, I love Jordan Love.
Get him out.
A quarterback that you hate.
Boo, bad
the 9th best
transition,
quarterback in the NFL. Isaiah is going to find a way, convolute his brain into thinking Jordan Love isn't a top 10 quarterback. But everything we saw last season was Jordan Love being a top 10 quarterback. 30-plus passing touchdowns, only got better as the season went on. And to say that he's maybe not that good because he's been in the league for 3 or 4 years to downplay his production, he deserves to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL.
Can't wait for Green Bay to pay him. I would love the Packers to do that.
It's better than having Sam Darnold as your starting quarterback next year.
Not better than having J.J. McCarthy as your starting quarterback, I tell you that.
An unknown in J.J. McCarthy last year, and they
much rather have J.J.
this year. And they were also very close to beating the 49ers. If their kicker doesn't miss the 41-yard field goal.
Oh, the kicker's why they didn't beat the 49ers? How'd that game end? How'd that game end against the 49ers?
They lost by 3.
Yeah, what was the final play of that game from the Packers offense?
If it would have been tied, it wouldn't have led to that. We may be talking about a different game. Pressures maybe put on the 49ers.
So Love doesn't do well under pressure. I've heard enough. I'll address the Jordan Love stuff. He had 7 good games, 1 good playoff game, and then played terribly against the 49ers. All due respect to him, I think he's a very talented quarterback. He is a prototypical gunslinger. I just would like to see a little bit more before I start putting him in top 10 conversations with guys like Jared Goff, like Tua Tagovailoa, who have had multiple successful seasons. Jordan Love has not had half a successful season. The Packers were well and truly dead in the water, and thanks to the elevation of their offense, partially due to Love, partially due to their defense playing better, partially due to guys like Aaron Jones in their receiver room getting active, they snuck into the playoffs and beat the Cowboys.
They embarrassed the Cowboys.
The Cowboys embarrassed themselves. Dak Prescott essentially
I
threw...
believe a perfect quarterback
Yeah, and
rating.
Aaron Jones read 3 touchdowns too. Dak Prescott, he either threw 2 pick sixes or 1 pick six and
against
1 pick...
the top 5 defense.
Okay, great. The defense was fraudulent. Aaron Jones deserves just as much credit for that game as Jordan Love. Dak Prescott deserves even more credit because he really shot the Cowboys in the foot. All this being said, I have him at like 12 or 13, but having him in the top 10 after 7 games is stupid. There's a real chance he regresses. there's a real chance he maintains
He played
his
the
level.
whole year.
Yeah, I know. He played the whole year. Teams now have film on him. Congratulations. I'm not going to go doing the the Macarena for a guy who has not had an entirely successful season. It's not happening. There are so many other quarterbacks I would put on this list ahead of Jordan Love. I wish the Packers gave him $55 million. I pray their future is locked up into a quarterback who winds up stinking up the place. Get out of here with that Jordan Love crap.
Vikings fan, by the way.
At 8, Dak Prescott. Speaking of gunslingers, Dak Prescott is what Jordan Love kind of wishes he could be, with one glaring exception. Tremendous arm strength, can throw it all over the field, is fearless, stands in a clean pocket, stands in a dirty pocket, doesn't matter, and delivers the ball well. There are not too many passers of the football better than Dak Prescott. The issues are pretty obvious. 1, the injuries have slowed him down in the past. 2, he's not particularly mobile, certainly not after the ankle. And 3, he is a playoff choker. There's no denying it at this point. We saw what he did against the 49ers. We saw what he did against the Packers. He's just not that guy. I don't know if he's ever going to be that guy, but the tremendous regular season production matters. We can't really gloss over that. Not many quarterbacks have better stats than him since entering the league. He's a winner. He will get you to the dance. It's just the performance once he gets to the dance, which is the issue. And he's also prone to the occasional stinker in the regular season. But very talented quarterback, great pocket passer, just not a playoff performer.
My omission of him from my top 10 relies solely on his lack of playoff success. You said Jordan Love only has 1 playoff win. Dak has 1, 2 playoff wins. Either way, he's been pathetic in the playoffs more times than he's been good. I mean, he beat up on the Buccaneers that one time in Tom Brady's last season when they were dealing with injuries and looked like a shell of their Super Bowl team. Congratulations. In the regular season, when they play good teams, he has a tendency to not perform and live up to what we see the rest of the regular season. So is he a very good quarterback? Yes. Do I think he deserves to get paid by someone? Yes. I think all those things are true. But when it comes to calling him a top 10 guy and he can't perform in big games during the regular season, simply doesn't show up in the playoffs. I mean, we've seen it against the 49ers a couple years ago, multiple interceptions. This past year against the Packers, take the Cowboys out of the game and then kind of pads his stats in the fourth quarter to make the score look somewhat respectable. So for those reasons, he's on the outside looking in. He would have been an honorable mention for me.
Well, look, to say he can't perform in the regular season, doesn't have good games in the regular season is ridiculous against good teams.
I didn't say that.
Against good teams, he has performed well, particularly last year. Had a good game against the Lions. Various other teams, he steps up to the moment, plays very well in divisional play, beats up on the Eagles pretty consistently. He's not some regular season slumper. He has bad games against the Ravens and teams like that because everybody has bad games against the Ravens. It's kind of how the NFL works.
If
you want to keep him off the list because of the playoffs, fine. I understand that argument. But if we were to do this based solely off regular season production, I think I'd have Dak in the top 3.
Well, it's a combination of the lack of playoff success and a tendency to have a few stinkers during the regular season. I mean, he was at the top of MVP talks until, the Bills game, I think, when they got blown out against Buffalo. So those things combined have me placing him at 11 or 12 rather than having him at 8, 7, or 6.
That, and of course, and you mentioned I'm a Vikings fan. You are also what? Giants fan, a long-suffering Giants fan. A Giants fan who has watched Dak Prescott violate his team over and over again. I'd be a little bit embarrassed if a non-top 10 quarterback did the things Dak Prescott did to the Giants to my favorite team. That's just me.
Well,
though.
Mentioning the Giants, I have
Daniel Jones.
I have Jalen Hurts coming in at number 8 on my list. And I think Jalen Hurts is a polarizing player on anyone that gives their top 10 quarterbacks. People who don't like him will think it's egregious he's in the top 10. And Eagles fans will feel like he's too low on the list because of how good he was during their Super Bowl run and how productive he's been since the transition from Carson Wentz. But with that being said, I think he's a very good quarterback. He deserves to be in the top 10. He's an underrated passer by his haters, completing 66 and 65% of his passes each of the last 2 seasons. You don't throw for over 300 yards, rush for 70 yards, have 4 total touchdowns against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl when you are a bad quarterback. But as we saw last year, the entire Eagles fell off towards the end of the season, and he did not look like himself the entirety of the season. A lot of his production and scoring came from the tush push. He wasn't nearly as high level a runner as we saw during their Super Bowl run. And I don't think when it comes to the guys that I have above him on this list, he doesn't read the defense at quite their level. He's not quite the passer that they are. And he benefits greatly from some of the talent he has around him. Having the best offensive line, having the best receivers, very solid tight end. So that's why I have him at 8 versus having him at 5, 4, 3, or 2.
You looked at that with a very slanted perspective, and I understand why. I've got him lower on the list. I'll talk about him when he comes up on mine. At number 7 for me, I have Justin Herbert. And he is the eye tester's delight. There is a lot to love about watching Justin Herbert play. He's got the cannon of an arm. He looks like a quarterback. He's big, he's tall, he's trunky, he's coastal, he's handsome. You want your daughter to date someone like Justin Herbert, mainly due to the contract he's got, but I digress. He's got a pretty throw. He makes good decisions most of the time. But there are some issues. Namely, a lack of production, a lack of ability to perform in the clutch, and really a low release point on his balls. And that's a criticism I don't see getting made a ton. You laugh at that. He was among the top in quarterback deflections at the line of scrimmage last season, and he's 6'6". Like, that can't happen. He throws the ball a little bit too low, and I know he can put some juice on when he does it, really get under it, but at the same time, if you're getting your ball tipped down the line of scrimmage a ton, it's not great. Again, at this point further down on the list, I think we're really going to start seeing nitpicks be the criticism. He can do everything athletically. He can put the ball anywhere on the field. He can run. He doesn't run as much as he should. He sometimes takes sacks instead of taking off, which if you think that's good for your health, by all means, keep doing it. But really, the thing keeping him at 7 instead of in the top 5 or down 4 or 3 for me, I really just don't think he's clutch. Maybe Harbaugh changes that, but there were 4 drives last season. He was given the ball late in a one-score game, failed to lead a scoring drive. We know about the collapse against the Jaguars in the playoffs. People are going to say, oh, that's not on him. Had a 50% completion percentage in the second half. He didn't play well the second half either. There were other people responsible too, but Herbert certainly contributed to that Jaguars loss. There are many, many, many other quarterbacks I would rather have in a close game than Justin Herbert. Granted, he's good at keeping the games from getting close, so a lot to be said for that. But number 7 feels about right for me. That could all change by this time next year when Jim Harbaugh saved his career, but we'll have to wait and see.
I don't hate the placement of Justin Herbert at 7. I'll address him very quickly since I only have him one higher on my list. I have him as the 6th best quarterback, and I agree with a lot of what you said. I think over the previous 2 seasons, we've kind of seen a decline in his production. Now, I know last year he got injured and missed the rest of the season, so that's why the touchdowns and passing yards weren't there. But in his 3rd season, the touchdowns weren't there also. I mean, just 25 passing touchdowns compared to his first 2 years where he was well over 30 each season.
I mean, Austin Eckler being as good as he was in the red zone, both as a receiving threat but mainly as a runner, and the other running backs that kind of contribute to that. Like, I don't fault guys for not having a ton of red zone passing touchdowns. I don't praise guys excessively for having a ton. Like, you look at Jordan Love. Aaron Jones is a great running back, only had 5 rushing touchdowns. A.J. Dillon was dysfunctional. They throw the ball when they get in the red zone. They have 2 big tight ends. So they have the luxury of doing that. Pads numbers a little bit. Herbert does not have those tight ends and has a better running game, so he loses out on most touchdowns. Like, the statistical drop-off doesn't seem like a legitimate criticism to me.
I don't think it's necessarily a major criticism, but it is something we have seen, and I think the people that criticize Justin Herbert a lot for not making the playoffs, only making it to the playoffs one time, not winning that playoff game and falling to the Jaguars, I place a lot more of that blame on Brandon Staley and what type of defenses he's had supporting him. In 2021, 29th ranked scoring defense, when Justin Herbert led the 5th best scoring offense, 21st scoring offense in 2022, with the 13th best scoring offense. So he's led top 15, top 5 offenses in the NFL, and his defense just hasn't been there to support him. The one year they made the playoffs and had a defense that wasn't close to dead last in the league, the offense might have been a little bit worse when it comes to scoring points, but that's the year they actually made it to the playoffs. So you need a solid defense unless you're Patrick Mahomes in his first few seasons, in order to win at a high level, and Justin Herbert just hasn't had that, and that's why I feel comfortable putting him at 6.
Well, Patrick Mahomes did not win a Super Bowl in his first 2 years as the starter. And I'm just wondering if guys like Tua get the same benefit of the doubt, because his last 2 years in Miami, he has also had crappy defenses with McDaniel. And again, it's not fair to solely blame Herbert for the Chargers' deficiencies, but I think more of the blame falls on his shoulders. And when you're given the ball with a chance to go down an entire win a game, that's on you regardless of how many points your defense lets up.
Regardless, let me get back to my 7th overall quarterback. And this probably is going to piss more people off than any other quarterback on our list. I think Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback. I think he is the 7th best quarterback in the NFL.
Just grinding some salt over here.
I don't like the 49ers. I don't like 49ers fans at all, but I have to respect Brock Purdy's game because in 2 years, if his elbow doesn't implode against the Eagles, he's likely the quarterback of 2 back-to-back Super Bowl teams, and he succeeds at a high level. He has elite accuracy. He processes and reads the defense at a high level. He wins at a high level, and he does everything you want a quarterback to do. Is he maybe not as big as some of the other quarterbacks? Does he not have as strong an arm when it comes to pushing the ball down the field? Maybe, but he has elite short area quickness. I know you love that phrase. He's a very good scrambler. And the people that criticize him for his supporting cast, he's one of the best supporting casts in the NFL. Every young quarterback over their first few seasons that has been great has had phenomenal supporting casts.
Well,
Patrick
Andrew Luck
Mahomes
would like a word.
What?
Well, Andrew Luck would like a word on that.
Well, even
Justin Herbert would like a word on that.
Well, Justin Herbert had Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Caleb Williams entering this season hasn't played yet, but he's going to have 3 great receivers, a solid backfield, a good offensive line in front of him. Jalen Hurts has had A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, a good tight end. Something when it comes to winning, when it comes to quarterbacks being successful earlier in their career, a lot of them have great players around him. And the 49ers offensive line, outside of Trent Williams, also was not amongst the best in the NFL last season when it comes to pass protection.
I take issue with the outside of Trent Williams because Trent Williams plays by far the most important position on the offensive line unless you weirdly value center because he snaps the ball. So yeah, being mediocre outside by far, like you could say, oh, this roster's mediocre except for the quarterback. I say, yeah, that they're still going to the playoffs. Like having Trent Williams on your offensive line.
Phenomenal roster. I'm not
like don't downplay the offensive line by saying mediocre outside Trent Williams. It's a good O-line.
I wouldn't downplay the offensive line to the extent that Brock Purdy superfans try to downplay the 49ers offensive line in order to, emphasize how crazy his completion percentage and passing yards are. But I just think that detraction of Brock Purdy is a little disingenuous, and I think he's the 7th best quarterback in the NFL.
Here's the thing. Everything you used to knock Jared Goff, I think, could be said about Brock Purdy in greater space. I think Goff's got a better arm, better passer with the football. Does not move as well in the pocket as Purdy, but doesn't really need to. I don't think Purdy is amazingly clutch. I think he benefits from the talent around. There's no denying that. Granted, he can also step in and partially elevate that talent around him. He can perform well when things are going right. He can find guys when they're open. And I don't dislike Brock Purdy. He'd be an honorable mention hanging around 12 to 11. But I'd like to see a little bit more from him. I think saying, oh, if his elbow didn't explode, he would have been in the Super Bowl 2 straight years is a little bit disingenuous when you look at how good that Eagles defense had been in the playoffs and how good that Eagles offense was that week and then the next week against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. The Eagles were still probably winning that game.
It's easy for your offense to be good when the other team doesn't have a quarterback that can
move
the ball.
And then 2 weeks later, they had Patrick Mahomes, who in fact could move the ball, and Jalen Hurts had the best quarterback performance we've seen in Super Bowl history. So I think the offense was in fact clicking that year. It's a bit stupid to say that. If you're not going to give me the hypothetical of Goff going to the Super Bowl if Dan Campbell doesn't screw that up, I'm not giving you the hypothetical
of the
49ers not go 49ers going to the Super Bowl if Brock Purdy blew up his arm. Purdy's got some deficiencies athletically. I don't think he's amazingly clutch. I think he can keep things running on time, and I think a Kyle Shanahan offense does him more favors than it would most other people. But not in my top 10. Number 6, now that I have vomited out that word salad, number 6, Jalen Hurts. And I'm going to focus mainly on addressing what you said about Hurts. The inconsistency as a passer, the issues with injuries, those are valid, but those are easily explainable. One, the tush push Under the offensive coordinator they had last year, Brian Thomas, overused to an extreme degree, undoubtedly took a physical toll on Jalen Hurts as the year progressed. You can see the injuries mounting up in his lower body. You can see the thumb pop out of socket. That's due to the tush push. You watch how he handled himself when he was healthy, when he had a clean pocket, when the plays were called in an effective manner. He was still a very accurate passer. He plays on time. He plays with a rhythm. He gets the ball in his receiver's hands. I think he's a very, very underrated passer of the football. He said, people don't give him credit for it. People don't give him enough credit. He's a top 10 passer. He'd be on this list without the rushing ability. Then the rushing ability is somewhat underrated. Obviously, number one is Lamar Jackson. After that, you could argue Justin Herbert, or you could argue Josh Allen, or you could argue Jalen Hurts for who was the best runner of the football at the quarterback position. Phenomenal runner without the tush push. 700, 600, 650 yards as a rusher. Special athlete. Incredibly powerful runner. Great leader. Very popular in the locker room. Is capable of stepping up in the clutch and leading big drives. 2 years ago, most people had him as their 5th best quarterback. Some people had him as their 3rd best quarterback. And I'll disagree with those rankings. But playing last year hurt with a terrible offensive coordinator has diminished the public's perception of him. Ultimately, I think he's number 6. I think that's fair. I would have him in my top 5 still, if not for another very talented player coming into the league last year. Great quarterback. I'd love him to be on my team. I think he can lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl, but he needs a little bit more help defensively and needs a much better offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with anything you just said. I have him in my top 10. I just prefer Justin Herbert's physical abilities and what he's shown over the course of his 4-year career and what Brock Purdy did last season, what they are bringing into 2024 over Jalen Hurts right now. So that's why I would have him at 8 instead of having him at 6 or 7 where I have Justin Herbert and Brock Purdy.
Say what you want about Purdy. I don't hate that. I can follow the logic. Having Brock Purdy over Jalen Hurts is egregious. We will be addressing that off camera. I'll be getting the flogging paddle out for you. Who's your number 6?
I did 6 already. It was Herbert. I can do 5.
Yeah, you can do 5.
And now, this ranking may feel aggressive for some people just because of how high I have him. CJ Stroud, 2nd-year player heading into 2024, was a rookie last year, was phenomenal, elevated a Texans team that was horrible prior to his arrival, won at a high level through touchdowns, 4,000 plus passing yards, and all around gave Texans fans a lot of hope for the future, even won a playoff game where he embarrassed the Browns defense that was one of the 2 best defenses in the NFL during the regular season. Albeit his defense got to play against Joe Flacco. So with that being said, there's a lot of projection going on here with this ranking because he is only a 2nd-year player, but I think he's going to be the 5th best quarterback in the NFL heading into this season.
Well, there's a few problems CJ Stroud just didn't address there. One, he's got a bad habit of predetermining his throws. He does not progress through his reads at a level of a guy like a Mahomes, like a Dak Prescott. He is locked onto certain targets before the play is snapped, and that is what led to a lot of his interceptions. Second, only threw 5 picks last year, had the lowest interception rate in all of football. It's a bit patent. He threw a lot of risky balls, which didn't result in turnovers.
Well, he had the lowest turnover-worthy play rate of any quarterback in the NFL.
I am guaranteeing you right now, he had plenty of plays which should have been picked and weren't. Don't care about the turnover rate. I went back, I watched the film on this. He is going to get picked off more next season. Part of that goes hand in hand with why he's such a great quarterback. He's incredibly confident. He will throw to a man in man coverage. He will attack a zone. He will go at a guy if he thinks his receiver can beat him. It's an admirable thing. He's a top-tier gunslinger. He is a phenom passing the football. You said, I got a little bit of projection with this ranking. I don't have any projection with this ranking. He was the 5th best quarterback in football. Actually, he was the 4th best quarterback in football last year. I'm knocking him down a peg because Burrow's back and healthy, but he was a top 5 quarterback as a rookie, led the NFL in yards per game, transformed a terrible Texans offense, had Nico Collins become a Pro Bowl, borderline all-pro level receiver due to his presence. There are few passers of the football better than CJ Stroud. I think it's going to catch up to him a little bit how aggressive he can be in 2024. I think the production is going to improve only slightly. Certainly the touchdowns are going to go up, but I have him at 5. It's not projection. It's not saying, he's going to get better. He was the 5th best quarterback in football last year. He was the 4th best quarterback in football last year, and I only think he is going to improve as time goes on.
Well, we agree on number 5.
The problem with the quarterback rankings is you know how it's going to end. So I don't even need my notes anymore. We have talked about the next 4 quarterbacks to such an excessive amount that I could do it with my eyes closed from memory with 2 fingers in my ears. Number 4 is Joe Burrow. Phenomenal passer of the football, big arm, could be a little bit bigger, super accurate, keeps the offense running on time, incredibly clutch. The issues are obvious. He's got some injury histories, some injury concerns. He takes way too many sacks. He doesn't get rid of the football when he should, and he has benefited heavily from playing with 3 very good receivers. Certainly an elite wide receiver 1, an elite wide receiver 2, and an elite wide receiver 3 throughout his career. That being said, went to a Super Bowl in his 2nd year as a starter. Could have gone back, not last year, but the year before. Super talented. You would love him to be leading your team. I'm tempted to knock him down to number 5, not because I think CJ Stroud's going to be better than him, because he showed up to training camp with that awful bleach blonde haircut. That is a horrible look. Actually, that is going to affect my ranks here. Take everything I said and push Burrow to 5. I got CJ Stroud as my 4th best quarterback, just for a little spice. That wannabe Eminem look is bad. Bad.
Well, when it comes to Joe Burrow, I think everyone knows he's very accurate. He's one, if not the most accurate quarterback in the NFL, potentially maybe the best pure passer of the football in the NFL. But when it comes to knocking him down from 2 or 3 and putting him at 5 in your case because of his hair, or even at 4, much lower than Bengals fans would probably have him, I think it comes down to a couple of things. It's the fact he struggles to stay healthy, whether it's his ACL in year 1, last year his calf to start the year, and then he bangs up his finger during the season, misses the rest of the year, and I think his playoff run, a little bit fraudulent. His defense, I picked off Ryan Tannehill, 3-4 times against the Titans in the playoffs.
If you're going to talk about the defense, no group of fans discredits a side of the ball more than Bengals fans discredit their own defense to try and make Joe Burrow look good. Every single playoff game they won on that run centered around Joe Burrow failing to lead a late game touchdown drive. Then as time winds down, his defense picks off the opposing team's quarterback, and then he goes up and scores, or they've already got the lead and they win. They did it against Derek Carr and the Raiders when Carr was threatening to throw a game-winning touchdown. They did it against Tannehill and the Titans, where they got Burrow the ball back in phenomenal field position and let Evan McPherson bang through a long one. They did it against the Chiefs, where Patrick Mahomes got held to a field goal in the red zone after Burrow failed to lead a clutch drive, and then they picked him off in overtime. Nobody picks Patrick Mahomes off in the playoffs except that Cincinnati Bengals defense. And then, of course, they did very well in the Super Bowl, but ultimately got sold because their offense stuttered a lot.
Failed to leave a game-winning drive.
Failed to lead a game-winning drive, only his defense didn't have enough time to pick off Matthew Stafford.
There's a degree of luck, Patrick Mahomes having one of the worst playoff games of his career against the Bengals, not converting on that, getting a touchdown on the goal line there. Then in overtime, he just throws the ball up into no man's land, not really trying to make a great play. The defense did that. Joe Burrow didn't do that to Patrick Mahomes, who I think we all know where we have him on our
Burrow
list.
was not lined up at free safety.
Exactly. So for those reasons, I have him at 4 instead of 3, 2, or 1.
Speaking of 3, you can't discredit a 2-time MVP that much. What can't be said about Lamar Jackson? He's the best dual-threat quarterback ever, yada, yada, yada. Better passer of the football than most people give him credit for, 2-time MVP. Again, you know where this list is going. Maybe you want to put Lamar above Josh Allen. When we talk about Josh Allen, I'll get to why I don't believe that. But supremely talented, supremely physically gifted, incredibly mentally sharp, puts the ball where it needs to be most of the time. If he had beaten Mahomes in the AFC Championship game, if he had not upped the performance he did, where he threw a terrible back-breaking interception into quadra coverage, I might have him at 2, but at the end of the day, you're only as good as your most recent failure, and Lamar played pretty poorly in the playoffs this year, which is what's holding him back from the top spot. I know the MVPs are impressive. Only one other quarterback on the list has that type of accolade, but I'm sorry, that's a media-voted award. That doesn't really determine who's better, who's not.
Well, when it comes to comparing him directly to Josh Allen, I think a lot of their shortcomings are kind of similar. I mean, you wish they would...
Incorrect. I know where you're going with this.
You wish they would have more playoff success on both ends. You wish one of them would have a Super Bowl right now when it comes to placing them high on this list. But in reality, the only one that truly has those accomplishments in anyone's top 10 is Patrick Mahomes. I mean, what other quarterback has a Super Bowl right now that's won recently? Matthew Stafford?
I mean, what we're qualifying is recent. But
Tom Brady's out of the league.
It's disrespectful and disingenuous to group Josh Allen in the Lamar Jackson conversation when it comes to failing in the playoffs. He has played Mahomes 3 times in the postseason. You could argue he's outplayed him 2 of those 3 times and still lost those games.
And there's a reason I have Josh Allen at 2 and Lamar Jackson still at 3. But speaking to the people that hate Lamar Jackson, they call him a running back. They think he should be lower on the list, below guys like Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. Maybe you have CJ Stroud above him already. And the narrative I hate when people talk about this is they completely dismiss everything he does on the field as a runner because it's not part of playing the quarterback position. They view passing the ball, passing yards, as the only thing that matters when comparing quarterbacks, and they throw up his passing stats to someone who only throws the ball. They say, look, Lamar Jackson's clearly worse. I think that argument that people make, I know you're not making it, and we have the same ranking for him, it is ridiculous. He runs the ball better than any quarterback has ever run the ball in the NFL. He averages over 6 yards a carry, and that is an element. There are multiple different ways to play quarterback, and that happens to be how he plays quarterback. Is he not as high level as a passer as a Josh Allen, as a Patrick Mahomes, as a Joe Burrow? Yes, you'd be correct, but he's good enough at it. I mean, 65%, 60+% completion percentage this past year, had the most attempts of his career, the most passing yards he's ever had in a single season, led the Ravens to a point where he was able to sit out the final game and then also take a bye week off to rest up for his first playoff game, which he actually did win. He's a great quarterback. He gets it done at a high level. The reason I have him at 3 instead of 2 or 1 is just the lack of playoff success. If he would have beaten the Chiefs last year, I would have him up, but I also blame a degree of that on the coaching staff calling a horrible game. They didn't utilize his strengths to the degree they should have running the football. They made him throw it 40+ times against a phenomenal Chiefs defense.
That horrible coaching staff had the Chiefs defense the Chiefs offense only scoring 17 points. There's only so much blame we can throw on them in totality. I'll say this and we'll move on to Allen. I have no issue calling Lamar Jackson a running back, but you've got a package on top of that. He is both a running back and a quarterback in terms of his production. Maybe not the volume, but he has the ground game capabilities of producing like an elite running back in the NFL. And when you package on top of that a top half of the league passer of the football, yeah, you're going to have a super elite player. Even if you don't think he's a top 10 passer, fine, whatever. The production on the ground, the running back-esque production, is so far and away clear of anyone else. You can't not have him here. The only people who really don't have him at 3 at this point are Joe Burrow fans. Number 2, Josh Allen. Look, you can talk about the turnovers all you want. I think that's been made pretty clear time and time again. A lot of those are arm punts or him throwing the ball deep late in games, trying to make something happen when just nothing's there. If you want to fault him for those, go ahead, have that argument with a wall. He is the only player in the modern NFL who has gone toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes multiple times and outplayed him multiple times. His lack of a Super Bowl ring says a lot more about how his teammates have performed in the biggest moments than it says about him. We all know what happened in 13 seconds. What they don't talk about is the play prior. Gabe Davis is found in the end zone in somewhat tight coverage for a touchdown. That should have been the triumphant moment. That should have been the knockout punch, which sent the Buffalo Bills with all the momentum in the world to the AFC Championship game and then to the Super Bowl, where they probably beat the Rams. I'm going to be honest, if they played the Rams in the Super Bowl that year, I think they would have torn them up. Then, this year, Tyler Bass cannot hit a field goal. Josh Allen gets hit as he throws it deep. And of course, Stephon Diggs drops a wide open ball, which if not resulting in a touchdown, would have resulted in a much easier field goal. Those are all on his teammates. There are some areas you'd like him to be better. He can be a bit too risky. He can put his body on the line. He can fumble when he is trying to make a play with his legs. But there is not a better passer of the football than Josh Allen besides Patrick Mahomes in the NFL. He's really, really good. And if his career winds up with him not getting an MVP or a Super Bowl, it will be one of the greatest injustices in football history.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get hung up on discussing has he outplayed Patrick Mahomes in a couple games. I'm not going to get hung up on talking about how great his stats have been. He's been one of the best passers in the NFL passes at an elite level. He's, in my opinion, the second best runner of the football in the NFL at the quarterback position. I'd rather have him over Jalen Hurts, which you mentioned earlier in this podcast. And to the people that wouldn't have him at 2 because they'd have a Lamar Jackson above him, they would have had Joe Burrow above him.
Who in the year of our Lord 2024 is pushing Joe Burrow over Josh Allen?
Bengals fans.
Sick people who have not had the grace of God shine upon them. Seek therapy.
And I kind of addressed that already when it comes to comparing him to Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow's playoff success is a little fraudulent, and you spoke to some of Josh Allen's playoff failures. If that 13-second drive never happens, maybe Josh Allen has a Super Bowl ring on his finger right now, if we're living in the hypothetical world, which Joe Burrow also doesn't have, and Joe Burrow also doesn't have an MVP. So Josh Allen, better runner than Joe Burrow, high-level, elite passer, elite processor of defenses. So I'd rather have him over Joe Burrow. And when it comes to comparing him to Lamar Jackson, let's just say, and I know you would disagree with this, let's just say the lack of playoff success is a wash when comparing the two. The rest of it, Josh Allen is a better passer of the football, has a lot more passing touchdowns, several more passing yards than Lamar Jackson, and he's about as close a second as you can get right now in the NFL to Lamar Jackson as a runner. Dominant, punishing runner of the football, scores a lot of rushing touchdowns, which Lamar Jackson also doesn't necessarily do. That often goes to his running backs, but that doesn't really matter. But I think he's a higher level passer and just close to as good a runner as you can get to put him at 2 instead of Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, not many people are going to go out there and hurdle somebody at 6'5", 260 pounds. Not too many people at all. They're not doing it like Josh Allen. We think he's very good. We think he's a Hall of Famer. We don't need to keep pounding this drum. And we really, how long are we even going to talk about Patrick Mahomes? Can we say, yeah, number one's Patrick Mahomes, that's the video. I kind of think that's the course we do. What do we need to say? MVPs, Super Bowls, best passer of the football outside of Brady we may have ever seen, best scrambler of the football ever. Stupid voice, terrible family. Like, the only knocks you have on Patrick Mahomes right now are what he surrounds himself with and his idiot tight ends and relationship stats, if that affects you in some way.
I mean, there's no one else that's been to 6 straight conference championships, 4 Super Bowls in 2 seasons. He's 2 MVPs, 3 rings. He has all the hardware. He has the statistical production. He gets it done in the big moments. There's no one you can compare in any facet to Patrick Mahomes, unless, like, you want to say Lamar Jackson's a better pure runner of the football. Anything else?
Oh, great. Congratulations. No one is basing their quarterback rankings purely on being a pure runner. The conversation is no longer Patrick Mahomes versus the league. It's Patrick Mahomes versus the top 3 or 4 guys of all time, and how many of them he's above already. I think he's already above Aaron Rodgers. To give you an example, Rodgers' MVPs don't move in the face of Patrick Mahomes' 3 championships. No one in the league's better than him all time right now.
I don't know if anyone's arguing anyone beside him.
Maybe you want to
Brady.
talk about Montana. No, people don't talk about Montana enough. Maybe you want to bring that up. I don't think he's going to catch Brady based solely on the fact Brady's got more rings, played forever, which I don't think Mahomes needs to or will.
Unless he wins back-to-back Super Bowls.
And beat Mahomes twice in the playoffs. That is the only thing I think which is going to stop Patrick Mahomes from being the greatest football player ever. Which is not a bad resume when you get right down to it.
Second greatest ever.
Second greatest ever, unless you want to start talking about LT, Alan Page, or Jerry Rice. But I digress. Those are our rankings of quarterbacks going into 2024. Let us know what we got wrong. I am sure the top half of this list is a lot more controversial than the bottom half. Tell us who's in your top 10. Write out your top 10s in the comments. We'll respond to them. Let us know why you think Kirk Cousins actually belongs in the top 10. Tell us what we missed out on by not talking about Russell Wilson. Your opinions matter. But if you're still here, thank you so much. If you somehow haven't already, hit the subscribe button, like the video, and we will see you next week.